Hey guys, my name is Mike, and this is Math Tutoring with Mike. Hey, before we jump into our video, there are just a few things that I would like to review with you. The first thing is that I want to implore that at the end of this video, by the time that you reach the end of this video, I want to make sure that you understand the principles that we went over today in this video. So if you have to stop the video at any point in time, that you're confused, or if you have to rewind, I really want to suggest that you do that. The second thing is that after you've reached the end of this video, that you actually go back and try solving the example problems on your own. Doing this, I find, is very important with cementing the theories and cementing the understanding. That you actually understand what was reviewed. So, thirdly, chances are you came to this video with a specific problem that you had. If at the end of this video you realize that I have not addressed the specific problem that you are looking to solve, I invite you to leave me a comment or shoot me an email with your specific problem or specific question. And you have my word, I'll do my best to either preparing another video or reaching out to you personally how to solve that particular problem. Anyway guys, so on to our video. In this video, we're going to be reviewing how to divide decimal numbers. When we see a problem where we have numbers like this, for example, 0.84 divided by 0.01, how do we go about dividing that, those kinds of problems? So we're going to go over that, and I'll show you how to proceed, or the steps that you need to take in actually solving that problem. So why don't we take that problem that we have now, 0.084 divided by 0.001. Sometimes you may see the question as divide 0.084 by 0.01. If you see something like that, it just means that you would set up your problem like this. Okay, so let's proceed. How would we solve a problem where we have 0.084 divided by 0.01? 0.084 why don't we do that? 0.084 divided by 0.001. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make our denominator a positive number or a whole number. If you try, so before, we had two numbers where we had to divide 9 divided by 3, what we would then do is we would say 3, we put a denominator outside of our bracket, and we put the denominator inside, so goes there, 9 goes there, and then we would proceed with the division problem. We would say 3 times a number would equal some number that we could proceed with. So what do we do now? Just looking back at our problem, how do we solve that problem? Well, the first thing that you would want to do is you want to look at the decimal point, and you would want to take it to the right however many decimal places that's needed to make this now a number without decimal points. So you notice we changed it 1, 2, 3 times. So however many times we take it in the denominator, we want to do the same thing with the numerator. So we take it 1, 2, 3. So once we do that now, our problem becomes 84 divided by 1. Okay, that's what happened when we moved the decimal point over. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 in the numerator. So this number becomes 84 divided by 1. Okay, let's look at another scenario. If we have the same number here, point, and I just want to show you what happens in another scenario. So let's just say we had the scenario 0.84, and we want to divide it by 0.0001. What do we do in that situation? Well, in keeping with the same steps or the same procedure that we use to solve the problem, we look at our denominator first, and we move the decimal point over as many times to turn this number into a number without a decimal point, or a positive integer. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces that we move our decimal point. Okay, so then we go to the numerator and we do the same thing. We move the decimal point over the same amount of digits over to the right that we did in the numerator. And we did it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we do 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you may realize that there are no numbers that we are moving the decimal point in the numerator. You may realize that. So what's actually happening there, or what we're going to do in that situation is assume that there are zeros here to allow the decimal point to continue moving, because in actual fact, this number is the same thing as, so we say 0.84 can be the same thing as 0.840000. So we're introducing zeros now in the numerator just to keep track of where the decimal point lands in the numerator. So it moves 4 digits over. So our new problem would look like 8400 divided by 1. Okay, let's look at one more example of how we move our decimal point over, and then we'll proceed with the division step. Okay, something more simple. We look at 3.51 divided by 0.1. Okay, so in keeping with our steps, you look at our denominator first, and then we move the decimal point over however many times to make our denominator a positive integer or a whole number. So we move it just once, one time to the right. So whatever we do to the denominator, now we want to do to our numerator. So we move it over one time, and the problem now becomes 35.1 divided by 1. Okay, so 35.1 divided by 1. What we do is we proceed to our next step. We will put the denominator outside of the square. We'll put the numerator inside. Okay, and we would proceed to solving our division problem in such a way as to say, so when we are now performing our division problem, we're performing our division problem now so that we want to find a number so that when we multiply the 1 by some number, we want the product, or we want the result to be equal to 3 or less than 3. We never want it to be greater than 3. So what number when multiplied by 3 is equal to or less than 3? So we say the answer is more than likely 3. So 1 times 3 is equal to 3. And then we put a minus sign, and then we proceed. 3 minus 3 equals 0. And as a next step, we bring down the 5. And then our new problem, we ask, what number, 1 times what number is equal to or less than 5? We find out that the answer is 1 times 5 is equal to 5. Put a minus sign. 5 minus 5 is equal to 0. We have a decimal point here, so we move our decimal point up in the same spot or same position, and then we bring down our 1. And we ask the question one more time. 1 times a certain number. What number, when you multiply 1 by 1 by that number, would equal to 1 or less? And the answer should be 1. 0. So 35 divided by 1 is 35.1. 35 plus 1 divided by 1 is 35 plus 1. Makes sense, right? Okay, let's look at another problem, shall we? Let's choose a more difficult problem, something not too bad, but so we have 7.2 divided by 0.5. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to move the decimal point over to the right so we can turn our denominator into a positive integer or a whole number, into a whole number. So we move the decimal point over just one time. And whatever we do in the denominator, we do in the numerator. So we move the decimal point over one time. And that makes the problem 72 divided by 5. 72 divided by 5. So to proceed to solving our problem, we put the numerator outside the bracket. We put the denominator outside the bracket, and then numerator inside. And we begin to solve. 5 times what number is equal to 7 or less? So we go to our timetables. We say 5 times 1 is equal to 5. 5 times 2 is equal to 10. So we see here that if that number is 2, then it would be bigger than 10, so it can't be 2. So it probably has to be the number 1. So 5 times 1 is equal to 5. And then we put our subtraction sign, and we say 7 minus 5 is equal to 2. Our next step is we want to always put a decimal point directly above the decimal point for our number here. And we want to bring down to 2. And we ask the question, 5 times what number would be equal to 22 or less? So if we go back to our 5 times table here, 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 5 is 25. So we see that the number cannot be 5, because if it was 5, then the product would be 25, and 25 would be bigger or larger than the 22. So that number probably is going to be 4, because you see 20 is going to be smaller than 22. So we said 5 times 4 is 20. Put a subtraction sign. 22 minus 20, or 2 minus 0 is 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. Okay? So if we want to continue solving the problem, we can. If we want to stop here, we can say that the answer is 1.4 remainder 2. Okay? Why don't we go on and see what happens as we continue to solve the problem? So usually we at this point, if there's a remainder, what we would do is we would add a 0, and we would bring the 0 down, and we would continue on. We would ask the question, 5 times what number is equal to 20 or less? If we look at our times table, we see that that number is probably going to be 4, because 5 times 4 is 20. So we see that this is going to equal to 0. And so another way of writing our answer would be 1.44. So this is how we solve, this is how we divide decimal numbers. Key point is we always want to make sure, we always want to start with the denominator always being a whole number. And we do that by moving the decimal point in the denominator over at first. And however many times we move it over in the denominator, we want to now move it over in the numerator. So we move it over 1, 2, 3, being very careful to add zeros, to ensure that we have the same number of the same numbers in the numerator as you do in the denominator. Keep in mind that if you add zeros to the end of that number, you're not changing the number. 2.08 is the exact same as 2.08000. So you've made it to the end of the video. Good deal. I really hope that you understood what was reviewed today. Like I said earlier on in the video, I really think it's a good idea that you go back and try to solve the example problems on your own. That way you can prove to yourself, and you can help assure that you actually understand the problems. Well, until next time, with another tutoring session, another math tutoring session with Mike. See you guys.